All right, so we're back today. We are now doing area of triangles. And I really appreciate the people that turned their papers in yesterday. Like almost everybody was doing parallelograms correctly. So thank you for actually watching my lesson and doing the problems like you're supposed to. So I appreciate that. All right, so September 4th, Friday. All right, so area of triangles. So let's start with this, which is going to be confusing because this is definitely not a triangle. All right, so hopefully you recognize that this is a parallelogram. And remember the formula for area of a parallelogram was area equals base times height. Remember the dot means multiply. So base times height is the formula for area of a parallelogram. But as you can tell, the title of our notes is area of triangles. Well, I'm going to show you how easy it is to remember this formula. If I cut this parallelogram in half, obviously it forms a triangle. So the formula for area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Okay? Because you're taking a parallelogram and you're cutting it in half. All right, so anytime you cut something in half, you're dividing it by 2. So now I've got a triangle right here. Used to be a parallelogram, so it used to be base times height, but now I'm dividing it by 2 to form this triangle right here. But like we talked about with parallelograms, those slanted sides really mess us up. If we pulled this triangle out that we just cut, all right, so all I did was move this down. This triangle right here, you can tell I've really only got one straight side. And remember, I don't need slanted sides when finding the area in 6th grade math. So there must be something else that I need to know. And there is, just like when we did parallelograms. They're going to draw in the height for you, okay? So once again, they're going to draw that chair for you. Now, sometimes it might not be a dotted line. Sometimes it might be a solid line, but they're still going to have that 90-degree right angle square right there for you to kind of help you out. So just like before, when you see this line, that's going to be your height. And then whatever your chair is sitting on, that's going to be your base. So just like with parallelograms, you are still looking for that chair to help you out, to give you the two numbers that you actually need. So if they were to give you numbers for this side and numbers for this side, you don't actually need those. Those are just there to mess you up and get you in trouble, which they tend to do. So please try to ignore those slanted sides. So let's look at a couple examples. Hoping we have time for 4, but like I said, my max is 15 minutes, so we'll see what we can do. All right, so my first one, okay, obviously a triangle. I'm gonna draw this in, and then let me label my measurements. All right, so there is my triangle. All right, and like I told you, they've labeled your height for you. It's not a dotted line this time because it's actually the side of the triangle, but they still drew the right angle for you to see that this is the height. So we're gonna find our chair again. All right, there's my chair. Now, what two numbers are touching that chair? Okay, so that's what we're trying to figure out, remember? So remember, my formula is base times height divided by 2. Okay, so what are my base and my height? Well, my base and my height are my two numbers that are touching my chair. Well, what number is not touching the chair at all? Hopefully you know it's 7. 7 is not touching my chair. So my base and my height, my base, what my chair is sitting on, is 5. The height of my chair, or the back of my chair, is 6. And divided by 2. And if you didn't know it, this line right here, I know it looks like a fraction, but it just means divide. We don't normally teach area first thing in the school year, so I'm having to remember that I need to reteach something or teach some things that I would have normally taught before. So this line right here is not, it just means divide. So don't let that mess you up. So we got to do what's on top first. All right, so 5 times 6 is 30. 30 divided by 2 is going to leave me with 15 inches squared. Okay? All right, so once again, just to make sure we're clear, I looked at my chair. My chair is touching the 5 and the 6, so that's my base and my height. So I plug those in. Base is 5, height is 6. The dot means multiply. 5 times 6 is 30. And then with triangles, you always have to divide by 2. So 30 divided by 2 leaves me with 15. All right, let's try another one. Okay, let's see. Let's do... Okay. And let's do this. All right, so this time I'll be nice and only give you 2 numbers, which is nice because remember, base times height divided by 2, you only need 2 numbers. Okay, so you just need your base and your height. So if they give you extra numbers, it's just there to mess you up. You just need your base and your height. So when they give you 2 numbers, it's kind of nice because it's kind of like saying, okay, here are the 2 numbers you need. Now go plug them in. So remember, my formula is base times height divided by 2. All right, so let's plug in what we know. All right, let's find my chair. So here's my chair. It doesn't matter that your chair is upside down. It's still a chair. Okay. So now what's my chair sitting on? Now, once again, it's upside down, but you could turn your paper over to see the chair, and you can tell your chair is sitting on 18. So that would be my base times, well, what's the height of my chair? The back of my chair is 9. And we're going to divide it by 2. Okay. Got to do what's on top first. So if I do 18 times 9, 9 times 8 is 72. 7 plus 9 is 16. So I get 162. But don't forget, and a lot of people do, you have to do that last step, which is divide by 2. Okay? So if you take 162 and divide it by 2, you get 81 meters squared. And you are more than welcome to use a calculator on this area section. Most of the numbers you can do, but anytime you need a calculator, you're welcome to use it because 95% of these questions on the EOG are calculator active. So I want you to be able to use the same tools you would be able to use on the test. All right. So that one was hopefully somewhat easy since I only gave you 2 numbers. You didn't really have to eliminate anything. All right, let's look at another one. Let's do... Okay. And let's fill in some numbers. Okay. So now this time, if you're looking at it, hopefully you can tell right away there are going to be a few numbers that you have to eliminate because remember, you just need a base and a height. So you only need 2 numbers and they've given you 4. So we need to be able to identify what numbers we do not actually need. So remember, my formula is base times height divided by 2. All right. So let's draw in my chair. Okay. So there is my chair. All right. And now I got to figure out what 2 numbers are touching my chair. So there's 2 ways to think about it. Okay. Well, which 2 numbers are actually touching my chair or which 2 numbers are on slanted sides? Well, hopefully you can tell this 6 right here is a slanted side and that 8 is a slanted side. Or you can think of it as, here's my chair. 6 is not touching my chair and 8 is not touching my chair. So neither one of those could possibly be the numbers that I need. Whereas 5 is the back of my chair and 12 is what my chair is sitting on. So I definitely need those numbers. So let's plug in what we have. So like I said, the base of my chair, what it's sitting on is 12. the height of my chair is 5, and we always divide it by 2. The one thing that's going to stay the same every time is that dividing by 2, because that never changes with a triangle. You're always dividing by 2. All right, so do what's on top first. 12 times 5 is 60. And 60 divided by 2 is going to leave us with 30 inches squared. We're still doing squared because it's still area. Remember, area is how many squares it takes to fill up the shape. All right. All right, we got time for one more. This one's going to be a little bit different. All right, so I would normally teach this a different way, but like I said, since we're just starting the school year, we haven't learned all the skills necessary yet to solve this problem like I would want you to if it was June. So we'll do it kind of a backwards way, I guess you'd say. But later on in the year, once I teach you some other skills, we'll go back and look at problems like this. All right, so let's say this one. All right, so let's say this one, they tell you that this is, we'll say 5 centimeters. And we're just going to label this as B. But then they're nice enough to tell you that, hey, your area actually equals 45 centimeters squared. So it's kind of backwards. They've told you the final answer, but you're missing one of your sides. Okay? Now, every single year, the first answer that people throw out is 9, because obviously if you see 5 and 45, you think, okay, what's the other number that goes with those? And it's obviously 9, which you're not far off. But if we were to plug in 9, remember, base times height divided by 2, okay? If I were to plug this in, well, obviously my height, they gave it to me. They gave my height as 5. And if you're saying the base is 9, okay, well, then I do 9 times 5 is 45, and then I have to do 45 divided by 2. Well, if my answer needs to be 45 and I'm dividing 45 by 2, that can't possibly be right. So we're going to be a big cross over this because that is not right. Okay, but there is a connection with 9. Okay, so remember, if we're dividing it by 2, I actually need it to be double of what I think it is. Okay, now like I said, I'm going to teach you a better way of doing this later in the year, but the actual answer is going to be 18, and I want to show you how. So if we plug in 18 times 5 divided by 2. Well, if you do 18 times 5, 0, carry my 4, that's a 9. I get 90 divided by 2. 90 divided by 2 is 45. So to answer the question, my base is actually equal to 18 centimeters, which would actually be the answer to the question. And like I said, I'm going to teach you a better way of doing that later in the year, but I wanted to show you an example of what happens when they give you the area and you have to find a missing side. You still have to remember that you have to do that dividing by 2 part, because that really messes you up. But you can use your base knowledge of, like, I knew that 5, 9, and 45 had a connection, so I just needed to think about, okay, well, it actually needs to be double that because I'm dividing it by 2. All right, you don't have anything like that on your homework, but I wanted to go ahead and give you an example in case you see it in the future. All right, thanks.